Hello everyone, welcome to Study IQIS. My name is Shubham Sagar. Today we will talk about a very big why. See, when you read medieval India, then what happens? In that scenario, you talk about Bhakti Movement, you talk about Alvars, Nayanars, you talk about Appar, you talk about Adi Sankaracharya, his Advaita Vedanta philosophy, we talk about all these things. And one thing which emerges out of all these points which we are talking about is that everybody reaches on this particular consensus that Bhakti movement arrived first in South India, and then from South it went upwards to North India. Now the question is why? Why Bhakti movement? When we are talking about Bhakti movement, when we are talking about Alvars and Nayanars, Appar, Sankaracharya, Madhvacharya, all these people, Vishishta Advaita, Advaita. So why we are talking about Bhakti movement emerging from South India and why not from North? There are multiple reasons for it, and we have to understand all these reasons one by one. Okay, so if we talk about the first reason why Bhakti movement emerged in South India. So here we are talking about early medieval India. Again, you can go to my free prelims crash course lecture, which comes every day at 7 p.m. on Study IQIS English channel. So there is lecture 13, which talks about early medieval India. So you will realize that we are talking about a period from 750 AD to 1200 AD. Early medieval India, according to Upinder Singh's Ancient and Early Medieval India book, that is the timeline. And during this period, North India was facing a lot of issues. North India, after Harsha's reign was 606 to 647 AD. There were certain towns in North India like Ahichatra, Kaushambi, which witnessed de-urbanization. So there was economic turmoil. Hunas, because of invasions of Hunas, Gupta Empire declined, Indo-Roman trade declined, trade with Byzantine Empire, which was Eastern Roman Empire, that declined. All these things led to economic turmoil to a certain extent in North India. And that's why what happened, generally when you talk about these kind of religious discourse, Bhakti movement, that cannot happen in a, place which is facing religious turmoil, because also here in this scenario economic turmoil. So if you are having economic turmoil, you're witnessing de-urbanization, people are going to rural areas, you're having shortage of food and all those stuff. In that scenario, religious discourse will not happen. So this is the first reason that during this particular early medieval India period, North India was in a economic turmoil scenario, de-urbanization, etc., etc. Ahichatra, Kaushambi, they were earlier towns, then later on became villages. All these has been. So all these reasons will facilitate, and that what will happen, the religious people, the religious discourse will started happening in South India. And here during this particular period, you hear about Pallavas, who will make rock cut architecture, Cholas, Brihatswa temple. So all these big kingdoms are there in the south, and that will facilitate, religious discourse, and that will facilitate Bhakti movement. This is the first reason, that is economic turmoil to a certain extent in North India. Economic turmoil in North India. Then the second point is political turmoil in North India. Again, if you look at this particular period, that is early medieval India, 750 AD to 1200 AD, before, during the Gupta period, Huna's invasion happened, and during this particular period, early medieval India, Arab invasions happened. QGG, there is a mnemonic which is known as QGG. Qasim, Ghajini and Gauri, all these people attacked, because of which there was political instability. This North India was earlier, you had Pala Pratiharas, Rashtrakutas during this period, and then later on Rajput kingdoms arrived, and there were so many Rajput kingdoms, Gahadawalas, Solankis, Paramaras, so many different kingdoms are there. And the North Indian polity is very fragmented, and it's facing political turmoil also. So many invasions. From 1000 AD to 1026 AD, so many invasions by Ghajini, who plundered Somnath temple among other temples. So you are seeing political turmoil as well in North India. On the other hand, South India is relatively unaffected by, or unaffected, or it's not affected by this particular political turmoil. It's relatively stable. That will also give rise to, religious discourse. People can talk about religion here because politically this particular region is comparatively stable. So these are two major reasons. The third reason is, if we talk about the third major reason, and this reason you cannot forget, most of the people don't know about this particular reason or the fact, that is Rajputization of North India. And again, some people asked me that what is the source of this whole thing which I am talking about? The source is Upinder Singh's Ancient and Early Medieval India. Rajputization of Northern India. What does it mean? Again, you can watch, I will show you one thing. This is the Early Medieval India lecture, lecture 13, Feudalism and Tripartite Struggle. You can have a look at this particular lecture. That will give you more clarity, although most of the things would be clearer by this particular lecture only. So let me give you a brief summary. Most of you already know about it. During this early medieval India, what was happening in North India? Earlier, from 750 AD to 1000 AD, you have Pala Pratiharas and Rashtrakutas. There was a tripartite struggle going on for Kannauj. Gurjara Pratihara will win this particular tripartite struggle, but ultimately all three will be the loser because this particular struggle will weaken all three of them, Pala Pratiharas and Rashtrakutas, and finally they will break apart and Rajput kingdoms will emerge. That is, we are talking about means Gahadwalas or Chahamanas or Chauhans of Ajmer, Solankis, you have Paramaras, you have Chandelas, you have. So all these kingdoms are there. And these are Rajputs. When we talk about Rajput, we talked about their heritage, from where have Rajputs emerged or arrived. So there are different theories. One theory is that the earlier foreigners, Shakas, Kushanas, from there Rajputs have, they are the clan or they are the descendant of foreign origin people, Shakas, Kushanas, etc. Second is mixed origin, that these Shakas, Kushanas, they came to India, they married indigenous people of India, and Rajputs are of mixed origin. Then there are some people who say that they are of tribal origin, and like earlier, even now you have Gond tribe and all those. So they won some battle and they became Rajput. Now these Rajputs, they want to become Kshatriya because you have Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. That is the ladder. And the community which can make these Rajputs, whose origin theory we keep on talking about, the only one particular community which can make Rajputs Kshatriya is Brahmanas. And Brahmans will do different kinds of sacrifice. One very famous sacrifice is Hiranya Garbha sacrifice, in which Rajputs will take rebirth as Kshatriya, and that is also known as Kshatriyization of North India as well as Rajputization of North India. Now Rajput need Brahman to become Kshatriya in simple words. And when we talk about Bhakti movement is a reaction against Brahmanical supremacy. And you will see this is actually very similar to 6th century BC when Buddhism and Jainism arrived as a reaction against Brahmanical supremacy. So Brahmanical supremacy will be there in North India because Rajputs need Brahmans according to Upendra Singh's ancient and early medieval India. Because of this, what will happen? The reaction against Brahmanical supremacy, which was happening in South India, Alvar, Nayanars, many of them were from lower caste, all of them were reacting that access to God should not be confined to only few people, it should be God should be accessible to all of them, or all of us rather. So here Rajputization of North India will lead to Brahmanical supremacy. The Brahmanical supremacy will continue here. Nobody will be able to challenge Brahmanical supremacy in a way which will happen in South India. Hope you are understanding this point. This is a very important point. Then there are other points. That if we talk about South India, Buddhism and Jainism, if you see Bharat Ek Khoj, if you see an episode related to Appar, who was there in Pallava kingdom, during the reign of Mahendravarman I, if I'm not wrong. So you will see Buddhism and Jainism had become very popular in South India. They were popular during the Sangam age only. You read about them in Sangam epics, Silapapadikaram, Manimekla, etc. So during this particular period, South India, it is said that Bhakti movement also emerged as a reaction against Buddhism and Jainism, because many people in Hinduism, within Hinduism, they were feeling threatened by the emergence or by the popularity of Buddhism and Jainism. So that's why Bhakti movement emerged first in South India. Then the fifth reason is, unlike North India, where you have Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, you have a vertical division of society. Earlier in South India, there was horizontal division of society based on which kind of land you are living in. Let's say Kurinji, Mulai, Marudam, Niyadal, Palai. There were different classifications of land, that is hilly tracts or pastoral land or agricultural tracts, which kind of land you are living in, coastal land. So based on which land you are living in, you will be given a name. Then later on, there was a vertical division of society in South India also, Brahmins and non-Brahmins. So it was said that Bhakti movement emerged as a reaction of non-Brahmins against Brahmins. So all these reasons have been given to prove the point why Bhakti movement first started in South India, then North. And you have to understand this reason because most of the people don't know about these things. Bhakti as a concept is very old. If you talk about Mahabharata, Bhagavad Gita, there is a concept of Bhagavatism in Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavatism. So what does Bhagavatism says? That let's say you follow a particular god, Shiva. Then whatever be the bhaga of Shiva, that will become your bhaga. Bhaga means whatever will be the faith of Shiva, that will become your faith. So Bhagavatism, Bhakti as a concept is very old. But here when we are talking about Bhakti movement, we are talking about the philosophy, Advaita, etc., Sankaracharya, Appar. So it emerged in South India first. And why? After Harsha, we have talked about this thing. After Harsha, Harshvardhana, process of deurbanization and ruralization started in North India. Evidence of Ahit, Chatra and Kaushambi abandoned in 7th century AD. So there is economic turmoil, comparative, economic turmoil in North India. So South India became major center of economic as well as religious attraction. Second reason, during this early medieval India period, QGG, Qasim, Ghazni, Gauri, they were attacking India, and mainly North India is facing the brunt, unlike South India. So this South India relatively remained unaffected by earlier Hunas, and later on Arab invasions. Relative peace gave rise to religious discourse. You cannot debate about all these things, religion, Alvar, Nayanars, other discourse, if it is a very unstable region where you have to think about your life. Hope you are understanding this. So peace is needed for proper religious discourse, and that peace was there in South India, leading to development of Bhakti movement. Third point, very interesting point which you have to keep in mind. Rajputization of northern India was one of the important factors. Rajput rulers always wanted to maintain social order as they were obliged to Brahmins for getting status of Kshatriya from them. And there is a particular, ritual also, Hiranya Garbha. So they did not allow such movement in their territories because Brahmins do not want any such attack on their supremacy, so to say, according to historians. Not, I am also a Brahmin, so don't kill me in the comment section for what I said just now. Fourth point, reaction against Buddhist and Jaina dominance. Again, if you see Bharat Ek Khoj, you see that upper episode, you will realize Buddhism and Jainism was very popular in early medieval India, in South India. That is, so instance of Bhakti sent upper condemning Buddhist and Jaina practices and canons. So in a way, Hinduism, if they wanted to survive in South India, they were looking for ways rather, and Bhakti movement was one such major way where they could, in a way revitalize Hinduism and also stand against Buddhism and Jainism. Reaction against bipolarized society. This we have just discussed. Like unlike North India, where we had vertical division of society, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. Initially in South India, you had horizontal division of society based on which kind of land you are living in, Kurinji Mulai, Marudam, Niyadal Palai. Later on, there was a vertical division of society or division of society in South India as well, Brahmins and non-Brahmins. And this was a reaction of non-Brahmins against Brahmins. Lower caste much exploited by Brahmins. However, historians argue that these points, such society existed in North India as well. So the fifth point was somewhat there in North India also. But the first 4 points are very important, especially Rajputization of northern India. This point you cannot forget. He is upper, very famous, Shaivite if I am not wrong, and during the period of Pallava, you hear about Appar. There is an episode in Bharat Ek Khoj on him. Fine. And many people feel that 7th century AD Islam arrived. So again, Hinduism is feeling threatened. Bhakti movement is a reaction against the India's response to rise in Islam. But again, there are debates about it. What do you think? Do you think that Bhakti movement emerged as Indian response to rise of Islam? If you agree with it, you can post it in the comment section that yes, sir, I agree with this particular theory. Fine. So hope you understood why Bhakti movement first, emerged in South India, then North India. And again, if you want to be a part of my Telegram channel, you can join Fun Study with Shubh, and we can, discuss more such things in detailed manner there. So that's it. Hope the concepts is crystal clear now, and hope you can do tell this thing to other people also, because most of the people don't know this thing, and this is actually a very, interesting thing to talk about. So that's it from me. Take care. Be blessed. I will see you soon.